Tiemann sat in the back row of the xenobiology classroom, his notebook open in front of him. The space station hummed quietly around them, a constant reminder that they were floating in the darkness between stars. Through the large window on his left, he could see the twin suns of the Harmony system burning bright against the black. He was the only human in the class. Actually, he was one of only 3 humans in the entire Celestial Harmony Institute. The Academy held students from 47 different species, all of them considered the brightest minds their worlds had to offer. Tiemann still wasn't sure why Earth had been invited to send students. His home planet had only joined the galactic community 5 years ago. "Pay attention, Tiemann," whispered Valera from the seat beside him. She was a solicit, her body made of living crystal that caught the light and scattered it in rainbow patterns. When she spoke, her body pulsed with soft colors. "Professor Reloth is talking about predator behavior." Tiemann nodded and turned his attention back to the front of the room. Professor Reloth was a scholarian, looking like a giant centipede with dozens of small hands along his segmented body. He moved across the floor with a smooth, wave-like motion that most students found calming. Tiemann thought it was kind of cool. "Predatory species," the professor was saying, his translator device turning his clicks and whistles into words everyone could understand, "are extremely rare in the modern galaxy. Most apex predators went extinct millions of years ago on their home planets. The few that remain are kept in high-security facilities for study." Gren, sitting in front of Tiemann, raised one of his 6 furry arms. He was a Paxian, built like a large bear but covered in soft purple fur. His people were herbivores who had never known a predator on their peaceful world. "Professor, why did predators go extinct?" "Excellent question," Reloth replied, his voice warm with approval. "As species develop intelligence and civilization, they eliminate threats to their survival. Predators compete for resources and pose dangers to young offspring. Logical species remove these dangers." Tiemann bit his lip to keep from saying anything. On Earth, humans had tried to eliminate predators too. It never worked out well. Remove the wolves, and the deer overpopulated and starved. Kill all the sharks, and the ocean ecosystem collapsed. His ecology teacher back in Beeson had been very clear about that. Torvik floated past, his containment suit humming softly. He was a cloudborn, a species that lived in the gas giants of their home system. The suit kept him in a methane atmosphere while protecting others from the toxic gases he breathed. "I cannot imagine living with predators," Torvik's voice came through his suit's speaker. "How terrifying." "Earth has predators," Valera said suddenly, her colors shifting to curious blues and greens. Everyone in the nearby seats turned to look at Tiemann. He shifted uncomfortably. "This always happened." "Yeah, we have some?" Professor Reluth's many eyes focused on him. "I have read the reports, Student Tiemann. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. Your planet has thousands of predatory species. In the oceans, on land, even in the air." The other students made various sounds of shock and disbelief. Tiemann had heard it all before. When he first arrived at the Academy 3 months ago, nobody wanted to sit near him. They thought humans were dangerous because they came from a dangerous world. It took weeks before Valera, Gren, and Torvik agreed to be his friends. "It's not that bad," Tiemann said quietly. "Most of them leave you alone if you're careful." "Most of them?" Gren's voice was high with worry. "You mean some do not?" Before Tiemann could answer, the lights in the classroom flickered. Then they turned red. A loud alarm began to wail, the sound echoing through the corridors of the space station. Professor Reloth's segments tensed. "Emergency alarm." Everyone remained calm, but calm was the last thing anyone felt. Students jumped from their seats, their various forms of communication filling the air with noise. Valera's colors flashed rapid oranges and reds. Gren's fur stood on end. Torvik's suit bumped against the ceiling as he lost control of his floating. The professor moved quickly to the wall panel, his many hands typing commands. "Attention, students. There has been a containment breach in the xenobiology laboratory. All classes are ordered to shelter in place. Lock your doors and—" The intercom cut off with a sharp crackle. The red lights continued to flash, painting everything in shades of blood. Tiemann stood up slowly, his heart beating faster. A containment breach in the xenobiology lab. That was 3 floors below them. That's where they kept the dangerous specimens. What does that mean? Valera asked, her voice trembling through the color pulses. What escaped? Professor Riloff had gone very still, which Tiemann had learned meant the Scholarian was deeply afraid. The laboratory houses several specimens from high-threat worlds. Without knowing which one escaped, I cannot say. A sound echoed through the ventilation shaft above their heads. It was a scraping noise, like metal on metal, but with a wet quality that made Tiemann's skin prickle. Every student in the room looked up at the ceiling. The vents, Gren whispered. It's in the vents. The scraping sound moved across the ceiling, directly above the classroom. Professor Riloff reached for the door controls, trying to activate the emergency lock. His hands moved frantically across the panel, but nothing happened. The system is not responding. The breach must have damaged the security network. Tiemann moved away from his desk, positioning himself near Valera and Gren. His mind was racing through possibilities. What kind of creatures would they keep in a xenobiology lab? Probably nothing too dangerous, right? This was a school. They wouldn't keep anything that could actually hurt students. The scraping stopped. For a moment, there was only the sound of the alarm and the frightened breathing of 30 students. Even Professor Riloff seemed frozen, all his eyes fixed on the ventilation grate in the ceiling. Then the grate exploded inward with a screech of tearing metal. Something large and fast dropped into the classroom, landing on a desk with enough force to crush it flat. Students screamed and scattered, pressing themselves against the walls. Tiemann got his first clear look at the creature, and his mouth went dry. It was 6 meters long, built low to the ground on 8 powerful legs. Its body was covered in overlapping plates of dark armor, each edge sharp as a blade. The head was narrow and sleek, with mandibles that curved like scimitars. Multiple black eyes reflected the red emergency lights. "A Rakthern striker," Professor Riloff breathed, his voice barely audible. By the ancients, they kept a Rakthorn striker in the facility. Tiemann had heard of them. They were apex predators from a Class 7 world, famous for their neurotoxic venom and incredible speed. They could paralyze a creature with one bite, then take their time eating it alive. The galactic databases listed them as extremely dangerous. The Rakthorn's head swiveled, its multiple eyes scanning the room. Students whimpered and tried to make themselves smaller. Valera's colors had gone completely dark, only a faint pulse showing she was still conscious. Gren had collapsed onto the floor, his evolutionary instinct to play dead taking over. The creature's gaze stopped on Valera. Her crystalline body reflected the red lights, drawing its attention. The Rakthorn began to move toward her, its legs making clicking sounds on the floor. Its mandibles opened, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth dripping with clear venom. And that's when Tiemann did something that nobody expected. He laughed. It wasn't a hysterical laugh or a nervous giggle. It was a genuine chuckle of recognition, the kind someone makes when they see an old, familiar thing in a new place. Every eye in the room turned to him, students and professor and predator alike. They all stared at the human who was smiling at death itself. The Rakthorn striker turned its head toward Tiemann, its multiple black eyes fixed on him, trying to understand this new sound. The creature had spent its life hunting prey that ran or hid or fought. It had never encountered prey that made sounds of amusement. Tiemann stopped laughing and took a slow breath. His heart was beating fast, but his hands were steady. He recognized the body language of this creature, the way it held its weight. The angle of its head, the slight tension in its legs. He had seen it before, not in this exact form, but in the fundamental pattern that all ambush predators shared. "Hey there, buddy," Tiemann said softly, his voice calm and even. He took a step forward, placing himself between the Rakthorn and Valera's frozen form. "Let's not do anything hasty." "Human, no," Professor Riloff's voice cracked with fear. "Do not approach it. The venom will kill you in seconds." But Tiemann wasn't listening to the professor. He was watching the creature, reading its movements. The Rackthorn had gone very still, its head tilted at an angle. It was confused. In its world, prey didn't walk toward predators. Prey didn't make themselves bigger and more visible. Several students had pulled out their communication devices, recording everything. They couldn't help it. Their shock had given way to a horrible fascination. They were watching a human face down one of the galaxy's most dangerous predators with nothing but a smile and steady feet. The Rackthorn's mandibles clicked together, a warning sound that made everyone else in the room flinch. But Timon just nodded slightly, as if the creature had said something reasonable. "Yeah, I hear you," he said. "You're scared. This isn't your home? Too bright, wrong gravity, wrong smells? You're just trying to survive." "It is going to kill him," Gren whispered from his position on the floor. "Why is he talking to it?" Torvik's suit hummed loudly as his anxiety spiked. "Humans are insane." The reports were correct. They are completely insane. The Rackthorn lunged without warning, its body uncoiling like a spring. Its speed was incredible, covering half the distance to Timon in less than a second. Students screamed. Professor Reloth tried to move forward, but his body wouldn't respond. Timon was already moving. He twisted to the side, using the station's lower gravity to his advantage. The Rackthorn passed within centimeters of him, its mandibles snapping on empty air. It crashed into a desk, splinters of metal flying everywhere. "See, that's what I thought," Timon said, slightly breathless but still calm. He was pulling off his jacket as he spoke. "You're built for ambush hunting, not active chasing. Your eyes are forward-facing like mine. Great for judging distance, but you have blind spots." The Rackthorn recovered and spun around, its 8 legs giving it incredible maneuverability, but Timon was already moving again. He grabbed a chair with one hand, holding it between himself and the creature. His other hand held his jacket. "Timon, please." Valera's voice was barely a whisper of light. "Run, save yourself." "Not leaving you guys," Timon replied. He kept his eyes on the Rackthorn, watching for the telltale signs of another attack. The way its back legs tensed, the shift in its weight. He had spent summers in Bizen watching the crabs on the beach, learning to predict when they would snap at him. The principle was the same, just scaled up. The creature circled, trying to find an angle of attack. Timon matched its movements, keeping the chair between them. He flicked his jacket, making the fabric move. The Rackthorn's eyes tracked the motion. "That's right," Timon said softly. "Eyes on the jacket? What is he doing?" Professor Riloff asked, his translator struggling to keep up with his rapid clicks of confusion. "This should not be possible. The Rackthorn Striker is an apex predator from a Class 7 world. It has no natural enemies." "Maybe it does now," Torvik said quietly. The Rackthorn struck again, going for the moving jacket. Timon let it take the fabric, using the moment to move closer to the emergency exit on the far wall. The creature shredded the jacket with its mandibles, venom dripping onto the synthetic material and making it smoke. "Your venom is impressive," Timon said, still moving slowly toward the exit. "Back home, we have jellyfish that can kill you with a touch." "Box jellies. My grandmother got stung by one once. She said it hurt worse than childbirth." Nobody understood what Timon was talking about, but the calm way he spoke was having an effect on the other students. Some of them were starting to breathe again. A few were even watching with something other than pure terror. The Rackthorn abandoned the jacket and focused back on Timon. It was getting frustrated now. This prey kept moving, kept avoiding. Nothing had ever avoided it so many times before. On its homeworld, the first strike was always successful. "You're used to 0.4 gravity, aren't you?" Timon said, taking another step back. He was almost to the exit now. "This station runs at 0.6 for the comfort of most species. You're sluggish here, fighting gravity with every move." The creature lunged again, but Timon was ready. He brought the chair up, not to hit the Rackthorn, but to redirect it. The metal legs caught under the creature's armored plates, steering it away from him and toward the wall. The Rackthorn hit hard, dazed for a moment. "Torvik," Timon called out. "Can you activate the magnetic containment field by the exit?" "What?" Torvik floated in shock. Yes, but I would have to get close to the panel." "Do it, I'll keep this guy busy." "You'll keep it busy?" Gren's voice was high and thin. Timon, you are prey. We are all prey. What are you? Timon didn't answer because the Rakthorn was recovering. It shook its head, then did something it hadn't done before. It made a sound. A deep, resonating click that came from somewhere inside its armored body. It was a challenge call, meant to scare off rival predators, and Timon grinned. Oh, you want to do this properly? Okay then. He spread his arms wide and made himself as large as possible. Then he made a sound from deep in his chest, a shout that carried all the evolutionary weight of a species that had climbed to the top of Earth's food chain through sheer stubborn determination. The Rakthorn actually backed up a step. In its entire life, it had never heard prey make a sound like that. Deep and loud and full of challenge. The creature's small brain struggled to process what was happening. Professor Riloth was making sounds that the translator couldn't handle. Several students had passed out. Valera's colors were flickering between terror and amazement. Torvik used the distraction to float toward the control panel by the emergency exit. His manipulator arms extended from his suit, typing commands with shaking appendages. I have it. The containment field is charging. Good, Timon said, never taking his eyes off the Rakthorn. On my mark, activate it. I'm going to bring our friend over there. How? Torvik asked. Timon picked up another chair. Same way I handle aggressive dogs back home, make myself annoying. He threw the chair, not at the Rakthorn but past it, making the metal clatter against the floor behind the creature. The Rakthorn spun to face the new sound, confused. Timon immediately grabbed a tablet from a nearby desk and threw that too. Making more noise, the Rakthorn's hunting instincts were overwhelmed. Too many sounds, too much movement. This prey was acting like a predator. The creature did what any confused animal does. It charged at the most obvious threat, which was Timon standing near the exit.tam and waited until the last possible second, then dove to the side. Now! Torvik! Now! The magnetic containment field activated with a sharp hum. Powerful magnetic forces created an invisible cage around the space in front of the exit. The Rakthorn hit the field at full speed and was trapped, its armored body held in place by forces it couldn't understand or fight. The creature thrashed and clicked, but it was caught. Timon stood up slowly, dusting off his uniform. His hands were shaking now, the adrenaline finally catching up to him. Well, he said, slightly breathless, that was fun. The classroom was silent except for the sound of the Rakthorn's frustrated clicks and the alarm still wailing in the background. Then, suddenly, everyone started talking at once. The security team arrived 5 minutes later, fully armored and carrying sedative weapons. They stopped at the doorway when they saw the Rakthorn striker trapped in the magnetic field. Then they saw Timon sitting on a desk nearby, drinking water from a bottle that Valera had given him. What happened here? The security chief asked. She was a Borrelian, built like a rock with 4 sturdy legs and armor plating that could stop most weapons. Even she looked nervous about the trapped predator. Student Timon captured it, Professor Riloth said. His voice still had a tremor that the translator couldn't quite hide. Alone, with no weapons. The security chief's large eyes blinked slowly. That's impossible. We have recordings, Valera said softly, her colors still uncertain. Everyone recorded it? The security team moved carefully into the room, keeping their weapons trained on the Rakthorn. They worked quickly to set up a more permanent containment system. Within minutes, the creature was sealed in a transport cage filled with sedative gas. As they wheeled it out, the Rakthorn's eyes never left Timon. Student Timon, the security chief said, you need to come to the medical center. That creature's venom is extremely dangerous. Timon shook his head. I didn't get bitten or stung. I kept my distance. Even so, protocol requires. I'll go, Timon said quickly, seeing the worry on his friends' faces. It's fine. The medical center was on the upper levels of the station, where the view of space was even more impressive. Timon was put in a scanning chamber that checked every part of his body for injury or contamination. The doctors and nurses kept looking at him like he was something strange and fascinating. Dr. Hannah arrived while Timon was still in the scanner. She was one of the other two humans on the station, a medical researcher who specialized in cross-species treatment. She was older than Timon, maybe in her 40s, with kind eyes and hands that moved with practiced confidence. "So," she said, looking at his scan results, "you had an interesting day. Is that what we're calling it?" Dr. Hannah smiled. The Racthorn striker's venom is a complex neurotoxin. For most species on this station, one drop would cause complete nervous system paralysis within seconds. She looked at him over her tablet. For a human, it would give you a bad fever and muscle aches. Maybe make you sleep for 12 to 15 hours. That's all? Your immune system is incredibly aggressive compared to most species. Earth's environment forced humans to develop resistance to thousands of different toxins and venoms. She shook her head in what might have been admiration. The Racthorn's venom is actually quite simple compared to some things on your home planet. Timon thought about the jellyfish his grandmother had described. The spiders in Australia that could kill you. The snakes, the scorpions, the plants that caused pain just from touching them. Yeah, I guess Earth is pretty rough. Pretty rough? Dr. Hannah repeated with a laugh. Timon. Most species in the galaxy evolved on worlds where the biggest danger was falling from a tree or eating the wrong plant. Earth has thousands of things that actively try to kill you every single day. The scan finished and Timon was cleared to leave. But when he stepped out of the medical center, he found a crowd waiting. Students from different classes, different species, all watching him with wide eyes and uncertain expressions. News traveled fast on a space station. Valera pushed through the crowd, her crystalline body flashing with relief. "Timon, are you well?" "I'm fine," he said. "Really?" "It's not a big deal, not a big deal." Gren appeared next to Valera, his purple fur still standing on end. "Timon, you fought an apex predator with your bare hands." "How is that not a big deal?" "I didn't fight it," Timon corrected. "I just managed it. Redirected it. Like you would with any scared animal?" The crowd erupted in confused chatter. Torvik floated forward, his suit speaker carrying his voice clearly. "Scared? The Racthorn striker was the predator. We were the prey. It was scared," Timon insisted. "Think about it. It woke up in a strange place with weird smells and wrong gravity. It was just defending itself and looking for a way out." Professor Riloth had followed the crowd. He stood at the back, his many eyes focused on Timon. "Student Timon, your perspective is unusual. Most species see predators as purely aggressive hunters. Because most species never had to live with them," Timon said. "On Earth, we share space with predators all the time. You learn to read them, understand them. They're not evil or malicious. They're just animals trying to survive like anything else." A small student that looked like a floating jellyfish spoke up, her voice translated through a device. "But you were so calm. How were you not terrified?" Timon thought about that. "I was scared," he admitted. "But fear doesn't mean you can't act. My grandmother used to say that bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's being afraid and doing what needs to be done anyway." The crowd fell silent, processing this. The concept seemed foreign to many of them. In their worlds, fear was a reason to stop, to hide, to wait for safety. The idea of moving through fear was strange. The Academy's director arrived, a tall, elegant being who looked like living water held in a transparent membrane. Her species had no name that humans could pronounce, so everyone just called her Director Mora. "Student Timon," her voice rippled like water over stones. "The Council has requested your presence tomorrow. They wish to understand what happened today. Am I in trouble?" "Trouble?" Director Mora's form rippled with what might have been amusement. "You saved 32 students and a professor from certain death. However, the Council is concerned. If a human can face a Racthorn striker so calmly, they wonder what else Earth has prepared you for." That night, Timon couldn't sleep. He lay in his small quarters, looking out at the stars and thinking about home. He hadn't realized how different Earth was until he left it. On Earth, everyone grew up knowing about sharks and bears and venomous snakes. Children were taught what to do if they met a wild animal. It was just normal. His communication terminal chimed. A message from his mother back in Bizen. She had heard about the incident through official channels. Her message was short. Proud of you. Also, your father wants to know if it was bigger than the dog that chased you when you were 7? Tiemann laughed. The dog had been a small thing, but to 7-year-old Tiemann it had seemed huge and terrifying. He typed back, much bigger, but same principle. Just had to stay calm? More messages came in through the night. News agencies requesting interviews. Scientists wanting to study human responses to predator encounters. Even a message from the Galactic Wildlife Federation, asking if he would consult on handling dangerous creatures, but the message that made him smile was from Valera. Just a simple note that pulsed with warm colors when he opened it. Thank you for protecting us. You are a true friend. The next morning, Tiemann stood before the Academy Council. They sat in a semicircle, 12 members representing the major species of the galactic community. Director Mora floated at the center. Student Tiemann, she began, we have reviewed the recordings of yesterday's incident. Your actions were remarkable. Thank you, Director. One of the council members leaned forward. He was a Vreni with blue scales and multiple fins. We want to understand. How did you know what to do? Tiemann thought carefully about his answer. Earth has a lot of dangerous animals. We learn about them in school. How to avoid them, how to behave if you encounter them. I just applied that knowledge. Another council member, a being made of geometric crystal shapes, spoke up. But the Rakthorn striker is classified as more dangerous than anything on Earth. With respect, Tiemann said carefully, I don't think that's true. Earth has saltwater crocodiles that can bite with more force than a Rakthorn's mandibles. We have box jellyfish whose venom is more complex and deadly. We have animals that can kill in hundreds of different ways. The council members looked at each other with obvious alarm. Director Mora rippled thoughtfully. And yet humans thrive on this world. How? We're adaptable, Tiemann said. We learn. We work together. And we don't panic easily because we can't afford to. If you panic around a predator on Earth, you die? So we teach our children to stay calm, think clearly, and act rationally even when they're scared. A council member who looked like a small son contained in a field asked, Are all humans like you? Tiemann had to laugh at that. I'm pretty average, honestly. There are humans who swim with sharks for fun, who study venomous snakes, who go into the deep wilderness and live with predators for months. I just grew up in a world where you have to respect nature but not fear it. The council talked among themselves for several minutes. Tiemann stood quietly, wondering if he had said too much. Maybe they would decide humans were too dangerous and send Earth back out of the galactic community. Finally, Director Mora spoke. Student Tiemann, the council has made a decision. We would like you to give a presentation to the Academy. About Earth, about survival on death worlds. We believe the other students could benefit from understanding your perspective. A presentation? Yes, many species in the galaxy have lost the knowledge of living with danger. Perhaps it is time they remembered. Will you do this? Tiemann thought about his friends, about Valera and Gren and Torvik who had been so terrified yesterday. About all the students who had never known a moment of real danger in their lives. The main auditorium of the Celestial Harmony Institute could hold 3,000 students. Every seat was filled. Students floated, sat, perched, or otherwise arranged themselves to watch the stage. Word had spread quickly about the human who would explain Earth, and everyone wanted to hear. Tiemann stood backstage, feeling his heart beat fast. Fighting a Rakthorn striker had been scary, but at least he knew what to do. Public speaking to 3,000 aliens was a different kind of terrifying. You will do well, Valera said beside him. She had insisted on staying with him for moral support. Her crystalline body pulsed with encouraging colors. What if I say something wrong? What if I scare everyone? Tiemann, Valera's light grew brighter. Yesterday you faced death and laughed. Today you face only attention. You are strong enough for this. Director Mora appeared, her water-like form rippling. It is time, Student Tiemann. Remember, speak simply and honestly. They want to understand, not to judge. Tiemann walked onto the stage. The lights were bright and warm. He could see hundreds of faces, some familiar and many strange. He saw Grant in the front row, his purple fur groomed neatly. Torvik floated nearby, his containment suit gleaming. Professor Riloth sat with the other faculty members, all his eyes watching with interest. And far in the back, almost hidden, Dr. Hana sat with the other two humans on the station. Jinsu, who taught advanced mathematics, and Bomin, who worked in security. They gave him small waves of encouragement. "Hello, everyone," Tiemann began, his voice amplified by the auditorium systems. "My name is Tiemann, and I'm from Earth. Director Mora asked me to talk about my home planet and what it's like to grow up there. I'll try to explain it as clearly as I can." He pulled up the first image on the display screen behind him. It showed Earth from space, the blue and green planet that humans called home. "This is Earth. It's about 12,000 kilometers wide, with a gravity of 1 standard unit. 71% of the surface is covered by salt water. The atmosphere is nitrogen and oxygen, which is actually pretty reactive and dangerous stuff. But we evolved to breathe it." The next image showed a great white shark, its mouth open to display rows of teeth. Several students made sounds of distress. "This is a great white shark. It lives in our oceans and can grow up to 6 meters long. It has hundreds of teeth that can bite through bone. It can sense electrical fields from other living things and smell blood from kilometers away." Tiemann paused. "We have thousands of species of sharks. This is just one of them. How do you swim?" A student called out from the audience. "Carefully," Tiemann said with a small smile. "But actually, shark attacks are rare. More people die from bee stings than shark attacks every year. What are bees?" Another voice asked. I pulled up an image of a honeybee. "Bees are flying insects about this big." He held up his fingers to show the size. "They live in colonies of thousands. They collect nectar from flowers to make honey, which humans eat. But if you threaten their home, they attack in swarms and sting you repeatedly. Each sting injects venom that causes pain and swelling." The audience was very quiet now. Tiemann continued, showing images of a saltwater crocodile, a polar bear, a king cobra. With each image, he explained calmly what the creature could do. How the crocodile had the strongest bite force of any animal. How the polar bear could run faster than a human and smelled prey from kilometers away. How the cobra's venom could kill a grown human in hours. "But these are just the animals," Tiemann said. "Earth also has dangerous plants." The next image showed an innocent-looking tree. "This is called a jimpy tree, found in Australia. If you touch its leaves, tiny needles inject a neurotoxin that causes pain so severe that some people have died from shock. The pain can last for months, sometimes years." A student in the front row fainted. Medical staff moved quickly to help them. Tiemann waited, feeling guilty. He was trying to explain, not scare everyone. But how could you explain Earth without explaining the danger? Director Mora gestured for him to continue. Tiemann took a breath and showed the next images. Venus flytraps that caught and digested insects. Poison ivy that caused severe rashes just from touching it. Nightshade plants that could kill if eaten? But what about your weather? Professor Riloth asked from his seat. "Surely that is calm?" Tiemann winced. "Not exactly, Professor." He showed a video of a hurricane, the massive spiral of clouds and wind that could destroy entire cities. This is a hurricane. Wind speeds can reach 200 kilometers per hour. They create waves higher than buildings and flood coastlines. More images followed. Tornadoes that picked up houses and threw them. Lightning storms that struck the ground thousands of times. Tsunamis that crossed oceans. Earthquakes that cracked the ground open. Volcanic eruptions that buried entire cities in ash and lava. Earth is very active geologically, Tiemann explained. The planet's crust is broken into pieces that move and crash together. This creates earthquakes and volcanoes. It's just part of living there. At this point, at least a dozen students had left the auditorium, unable to handle the information. The remaining students sat in stunned silence. Tiemann could see fear and disbelief on their faces. "But wait," Gren's voice called out, trembling. If your world is so dangerous, how do you survive? How do you build cities and schools and everything else? This was the question Teeman had been waiting for. That's the important part. We survive because we're adaptable. Humans have lived in almost every environment on Earth. Frozen places where water becomes solid. Desert places where it never rains. Dense forests, high mountains. Even underground. He showed images of cities. We build structures to protect us from the weather. We study the dangerous animals and plants so we know how to avoid them. We teach our children from a young age what is safe and what isn't. We develop technology to help us survive. The door at the back of the auditorium opened. Jinsu and Bowman, the other humans, walked down the aisle to join Timon on stage. Jinsu spoke first. I'm from Seoul, which is a large city on Earth. Millions of humans live there together. We build tall buildings that can withstand earthquakes. We have warning systems for dangerous weather. Most of us live our entire lives without seeing a dangerous predator. He smiled at the audience. We made artificial environments because the natural world was too dangerous. That's very human. If something is difficult, we change it, Bowman nodded. I work in security here at the Academy. Before that, I worked in wildlife management on Earth. People think humans are fearless, but that's not true. We feel fear just like everyone else. The difference is that we learn to act despite our fear. There's something else important, Jinsu added. Earth's dangers made us develop incredible immune systems. Our bodies fight off diseases and toxins that would kill most species instantly. That rackthorn venom that Timon was exposed to? It would give him a fever, maybe make him tired. For most species here, it would be fatal. A student raised a manipulator limb. Are you saying humans are resistant to all poisons? Not all? Dr. Hannah's voice came from the back. She stood up, addressing the auditorium, but many. Our liver and kidney systems are remarkably efficient at filtering toxins. Our immune cells attack foreign substances aggressively. We heal from injuries much faster than most species because our bodies are used to constant damage and repair. Another student spoke up, her voice hesitant. Yesterday, we thought Timon was going to die. We thought he was being brave by facing the rackthorn. But you're saying he wasn't in as much danger as we thought? Timon considered this carefully. I was in danger. The rackthorn could have killed me if it got a good hit, but I grew up learning about dangerous animals. My grandmother taught me about jellyfish and snakes. My school taught us what to do if we met a wild dog or a large bird. It's just normal education on Earth. We even have classes, Jinsu added, that teach children how to survive in the wilderness. How to find water, make shelter, avoid predators, and find safe food. By the time we're adults, we've all learned basic survival skills. The auditorium was silent as everyone processed this. Finally, Torvik's voice came through his suit's speaker. I have a question. Why did humans not simply destroy all the dangerous things on Earth? Why live with constant threat? We tried that, Timon said quietly. Long ago, humans killed many predators because we were scared of them, but we learned something important. Everything in nature is connected. When you remove predators, the prey animals overpopulate and destroy the plants. Then they starve. When you remove one type of plant, insects die. Then birds die, then everything falls apart. He showed an image of a forest. We learn to live in balance with danger. We respect it. We understand it, but we don't let it control us. Valera stood up, her crystalline body flashing with complex colors. Timon protected us yesterday. He put himself between us and the predator. Why? If Earth is so dangerous, if survival is so important, why risk yourself for aliens you barely know? Timon looked at his friend, her lights pulsing with genuine curiosity. Because you're my friends, that's what friends do. That's what humans do. He looked out at the audience. On Earth, we learn something else besides survival. We learn that working together makes us stronger. We protect each other. We form communities. We make connections across differences. 3 months had passed since Timon's presentation about Earth. The Celestial Harmony Institute had changed. In ways nobody expected. The new course was called Deathworld. survival and emergency response, though most students just called it human class. It met 3 times a week in a specially modified gymnasium. Today, Tiemann stood at the front of a group of 20 students, all wearing protective padding. "Okay," he said, demonstrating a basic defensive stance. "Remember, the goal isn't to fight. The goal is to stay safe and create distance. If something dangerous approaches, you need to make yourself look bigger and back away slowly." Gren raised one of his 6 arms. "But what if it charges like the Rakthurn did?" "Then you move aside at the last moment, using its momentum against it. Like this." Tiemann had Baumann demonstrate, playing the role of a charging predator. Tiemann stepped smoothly out of the way, using a gentle push to redirect Bowman's path. The students practiced the movement, though most of them were clumsy at first. Valera kept apologizing every time she accidentally bumped into someone. Torvik struggled with his containment suit's limited mobility. But they were all trying, and that was what mattered. In another part of the station, Jinsu was teaching a class on problem-solving under pressure. He gave students scenarios and limited time to find solutions. At first, most students froze when the timer started. But slowly, they were learning to think through their panic. Dr. Hannah ran medical training sessions, teaching students basic first aid and how to recognize different types of injuries. She was patient and kind, explaining everything in simple terms. Many students who had been afraid of the human doctor now came to her with questions about biology and health. The changes weren't limited to classes. The Academy's emergency protocols had been revised with input from the human staff. Escape routes were clearer. Alarm systems were more intuitive. Students ran regular drills, practicing what to do in different emergencies, but the biggest change was harder to measure. Students were less afraid. They asked more questions. They took more risks in their learning. They understood that danger existed but could be managed. To AEM, I had finished the day's class and dismissed his students. As they filed out, chattering about the lesson, Valera stayed behind. Her colors were pulsing with something that looked like nervousness. "Tiemann, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "What's up?" "Before you came, I was afraid of everything. Every shadow, every strange sound. My world has no predators, no danger. I thought that made us superior." Her lights dimmed. "But now I understand. We were not superior. We were just sheltered." Tiemann sat down on a bench, gesturing for Valera to join him. "There's nothing wrong with coming from a safe world. You're not weak just because you haven't faced danger." "But I was weak," Valera insisted. "When the Rakthurn came, I froze completely. I could not move or think. I was useless. You were scared. That's not the same as weak." Tiemann looked at his friend's crystalline form, the light moving through her in patterns he was learning to read. "You know what I think is really brave? Staying in that class even though you were terrified? Trying to learn even though it's hard. That takes real courage." Valera's colors shifted to warmer tones. "Thank you, Tiemann, for teaching us, for being patient with us. You guys are my friends. I want you to be safe and confident." After Valera left, Tiemann made his way to the observation deck. It was his favorite spot on the station, a large room with floor-to-ceiling windows looking out at the stars. He often came here when he needed to think. He wasn't alone. A figure stood by the windows, and Tiemann recognized Director Mora's flowing form. "Director, I didn't mean to interrupt." "You are not interrupting, Student Tiemann. I was hoping to speak with you." She gestured to the view. "Do you know what I find most remarkable about humans? Our ability to survive dangerous environments?" "No," her form rippled with what might have been amusement. "Many species can survive harsh conditions. What makes humans unique is your capacity for connection. You bond with others across every barrier. Species, culture, even danger itself cannot stop humans from forming friendships." Tiemann thought about Valera, Gren, and Torvik. About the students in his class who had gone from being terrified of him to trusting him with their safety. "I guess we do that, yeah?" The Galactic Council has been watching the Academy closely since the Rakthurn incident. There was concern that humans might be too aggressive, too dangerous to integrate into our civilization. Director Mora's form brightened. But what they have seen is the opposite. Humans make everyone around them braver, stronger, more capable. You do not conquer through fear. You uplift through friendship. So Earth isn't going to get kicked out of the galactic community? Quite the opposite. The Council has requested that more humans be recruited for various positions, especially in security, emergency response, and exploration. It seems the galaxy needs people who can stay calm in dangerous situations. Timon felt a weight lift from his shoulders that he hadn't known he was carrying. He had worried that his actions might cause problems for Earth. Instead, it had opened doors. There's something else, Director Mora continued. We have received messages from other academies and institutions. They want to establish their own Deathworld survival programs. They want human teachers? You have started something larger than you know. I was just trying to help my friends. Yes, and in doing so, you helped everyone. Director Mora turned to face him fully. The galaxy has been peaceful for so long that we forgot how to face difficulty. We removed all danger from our worlds and thought that made us advanced. But it made us fragile. You are teaching us to be strong again? They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Timon thought about his grandmother back in Bisan, about his mother and father, about all the humans on Earth who dealt with danger every day without thinking about it. They would probably laugh if they knew he was being called a hero for doing what any person from Earth would do. His communication device chimed. A message from Gren. Timon, come to the common room. We are having a gathering. Timon excused himself from Director Mora and made his way to the student common room. When he arrived, he found it packed with students from all his classes. They had decorated the space with colorful lights and strange alien music played from the speakers. Surprise! The Lyra's colors flashed brightly. We wanted to thank you. All of us, Gren bounded over, his purple fur bouncing. You have made us better, Timon, braver. We wanted to celebrate. Torvik floated down from the ceiling, his suit's speaker warm with emotion. Also, we heard it was your birthday in 2 cycles. We did not know how to celebrate a human birthday, so we improvised. Timon felt his eyes get wet, which confused some of the aliens who didn't cry. But he was smiling. Thank you, everyone. This is amazing. The party was strange and wonderful. The food was a mix of dishes from different worlds, most of which Timon couldn't eat but appreciated anyway. The music was alien and odd to his ears, but he danced anyway, showing his friends some basic Earth dance moves that they found hilarious. At one point, a young student approached him shyly. It was the fiber optic student who had asked if humans were dangerous. Timon? I wanted to tell you something. Before the Rackthorn incident, I was failing my courses. I was too afraid to try anything new, afraid I would fail. But after watching you face that creature, after taking your classes, I am not afraid anymore. My grades are better. I joined a new club. I'm trying things. Timon knelt down to the young student's level. That's amazing. I'm proud of you. You taught me something important. You taught me that being afraid is okay, but letting fear control you is not. Thank you. As the party continued, Timon found himself surrounded by friends from dozens of different worlds. They asked him questions about Earth, about humans, about everything. He answered as best he could, trying to help them understand. Junsu and Bowman arrived later, bringing Dr. Hannah with them. The 4 humans stood together, watching the party with matching smiles. You know what's funny? Bowman said. We came here thinking we were just going to study and work. We didn't expect to become teachers. Or cultural ambassadors, Junsu added. Or professional Deathworld survivors, Dr. Hannah laughed. But I'm glad we did, Timon said. These guys are great. Dr. Hannah put a hand on Timon's shoulder. You did good, kid. You showed them that humans aren't just the species from the scary planet. You showed them we're people worth knowing. As the party wound down, Timon made his way back to his quarters. His communication terminal showed messages from his family on Earth. His mother had sent a long video, telling him how proud she was. His father had sent a short message. Knew you'd do fine. You're tougher than any predator." But the message that made Timon laugh was from his grandmother. "Just one line. Next time you visit, I'll tell you about the time I fought off 3 wild boars with a cooking pot." "Miss you, dear." Timon recorded a reply to his family, telling them about the party and his friends. He tried to explain what life was like on the station, how strange and wonderful it was to be surrounded by so many different species, how teaching had become his favorite thing to do. Before sleep, he stood at his window, looking at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home, spinning through space with all its dangers and beauty.